Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Ground and Pound podcast, the reigning, defending, undefeated podcast, the show where we're hitting you with the elbows of knowledge. And as always, I'm here with my co host, Carlos. What's happening, Carlos?
Absolutely nothing, brother.
Absolutely nothing. Well, there is something going on this weekend, and a lot of people don't really know about it. Definitely not one of the best cards that we've seen from the UFC. And over at the Apex this week, for a fight fan, it's fights. It's something to keep us entertained. Maybe for the casual, it's not one that they're looking forward to. But I think there's a couple of nice matchups. The main event they kind of had to throw together last minute, but I think it'll end up working out pretty good. Um, Manel Kape is always somebody that tends to be in exciting fights, apart from the one fight, which we all know about. And Asu is somebody who's on the rise, so, young, hungry, up and coming guy, so it should be a good fight. And I think sometimes when there's lesser names on the card, sometimes there can be a lot of finishes as well, because guys, need to go out there and try and fight for their money, so they're looking for some bonuses. So should be a good event overall. What was your thoughts overall on this card so far when you were breaking it down, Carlos?
Well, I think you said lesser names. Is that what you just said?
Yeah, some lesser names.
Okay. Well, these lesser names have been around for a while, and when the UFC made a couple of cuts, I think they forgot a few people because they matched them up against each other. Lesser names. This was so hard to pick because everybody's on a losing streak. They're inconsistent. I mean, is it going to be exciting? Sure. It. I'm sure it will be exciting. It's just going to be like the hardest part was to pick who's going to win. You
Mm,
know,
mm.
um, that's hard every time because MMA, anything can happen. But it's because these guys aren't very good. So hopefully this fight becomes entertaining. This
Yeah,
fight card.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head with the UFC. Forgot a few people to cut. That's very true. And before we do get into this week's card and some different topics, last week's topics, and a recap from last week, hit that like and subscribe button. As you can hear, it is not Barry White that is breaking down the fights with Carlos this week. I have been sick this week, so I do apologize for the voice, but like I say, we're still here to get it done. We're here pushing, so hit that like and subscribe button. If that's not worth a like and subscribe, I don't know what is. And we got some topics to break down, to go over from last week, and not necessarily from last week's card, but some breaking news that we needed to talk about. There's going to be no more double champs. Really, really surprised to hear this. Carlos actually broke the news to me with a video of Dana White talking about this, and I'm going to pass this one over to Carlos first. But what are your thoughts on this? Like, no more double champs. Like, what do you think this does for the UFC? Like, how do you feel about this in particular? Do you like it? Do you dislike it? Do you think it's a business move? Like, what are your thoughts?
I think because of one of the guys that we have up here posted is Conor McGregor, and I think at that particular point in his career, he was at the height of it, and he seemed invincible to Dana, and the crowd wanted to see him. So to have him do, to have to be the champ at 45 and go up to 55, and he got it. It was exciting. It was exciting at the time. Uh, there is really no way he could have defended the 145 title and made 55. He ended up not even defending either one of them. He had to relinquish them anyway. But the point is, it's very difficult to be the champ in two weight classes in MMA, especially, is because there's usually like 15, 20 pounds in between each weight class, and there's muscle you got to lose, there's muscle you got to gain, there's uh, skills you got to learn, there's speed differences, and I don't think anyone can necessarily do that. The only one person I could think of was Amanda Nunes because she was able to go up and down and up and down and fight. She also had the nuclear option when it came to, finishing fights because, she could put any girl on Queer Street.
Mm,
But Daniel Cormier never went back down after being heavyweight and defended the title at light heavyweight. Um, Henry Cejudo never went back down to 125. And it's like, if you're going to have double champs, they should be able to defend it both. And I'm with Dane on that. It's like, unless you can find a fighter that has exceptional punching power, get the fight done. that transcends from one weight class to the other. Um, has the strength to do it. It's very powerful. There's no need to even debate that anymore.
Yeah.
Personally, I've seen guys like Roy Jones in boxing go up to heavyweight, have success, drop back down to, 175, and then he lost his chin because you're losing so much body weight over and over again. Chris Bird, same thing happened to him. Very talented, light heavyweight, ate himself up to, heavyweight, and then came back down later in his career to find success, and his chin was gone because of that.
Mm.
Um, it's just not a smart move. If the weight classes were, you know, 5 pounds apart or 3 pounds apart, I could understand that. But no, they're like 15, 20 pounds difference in between. There's no need to do that.
Yeah, yeah. I liked what DDP said. He said about I believe that champs should defend their title 3 or 4 times before they actually do decide if they're going to jump up or go down or whatever and try to become double champs. But I think that should have been something that they set in stone a while back. But I think there's been too many times in certain divisions where people try to jump up or move down or go for another belt instead of actually cleaning out their division first. So I think that's one side of it, is making guys wait who are next in line. I think that's probably from a business perspective where I see it, and that's why I think that the UFC and Dana's decided to do it, is because you've got guys who will win the belt and they're automatically calling out the guy and who's got the belt in the other division. And I think from a business standpoint that can be pretty difficult, because you've got guys who are you want to make matchups with other guys in the same division, and you're sort of playing matchmaker, thinking, okay, who can we match with this guy, and you're over here calling out the guy in the other division. It's hard to then sell those fights. So I think from a business perspective, I think it makes sense, and I think as well having fighters being able to fight more consistently as well. If they're going in and fighting the guy in a different weight class, you've got 2 weight classes there that are sitting there waiting for their champs to be available to fight. So I think from the UFC's perspective, I think it probably is a good thing. But from legacy perspective, from guys who maybe their dream was to become in the elite of the champ status, they want to be able to hold simultaneous belts, and that's part of their goal. I mean, it sucks. I mean, for a sort of a dynasty of fighters, you've got McGregor, you've got Cejudo, Amanda, Cormier. They're known and they're sort of scratched in stone in the Hall of Fame now for the UFC, and I'm sure people wanted to probably join them, but they're not going to get that opportunity anymore. So sucks in one case, but I also think from a business perspective, I do think it is a smart move. So I would like to have seen a few guys, Alex Pereira, I know he obviously went from middleweight to light heavyweight. I would have liked to have seen him have 2 belts at the same time, and a couple of other fighters do spring to mind in that respect. I know when John fought at light heavyweight, he's now gone up to heavyweight. I don't think people will ever discredit John Jones for that, but it is kind of cool to see guys hold 2 belts at the same time. But from a business perspective, it's it probably sucks. So.
Well, even despite being a business perspective,
Hmm.
you got DC, Cejudo, Connor, you said Amanda. Out of all of them, the only person that can move up and down in weight and defend both was Amanda. So she should kind of be in a class all by herself.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's the hardest part of being in that group. It's like out of the 3 guys, you know what I mean? It's like it's great that you have 2 belts. One guy didn't defend either one of them, and the other 2 gave up the other title after they won the higher weight class. But Amanda was able to go up and down a few times to defend. That's very impressive.
Hmm.
And yes, that she pretty much could dominate the divisions, but that's still impressive just to be able to make the weight and defend them, not just hold 2 belts over her shoulder.
Yeah, yeah, that's very true. That's very true. And I think as well, to be fair, when you've got a elite level fighter like Nunes, for example, that if she's putting girls away, in the first round, it is also easier to then come back and say, okay, I'm going to fight in a couple of months' time and have a quick turnaround. Whereas, for some of these guys, if you take, say, Topuria versus, I don't know, Islam, if this is a back and forth bloody war between the two guys and both guys need medical suspensions for 3 months, then that's two champs that right there that have been medically suspended just due to their injuries as sustained in that fight. So it is also a factor of the fighting style of the individual and how those results play out. If they're able to get quick finishes, it's great. But if they're not and they get a lot of injuries or a big cut and they need time off, then it can really stall up a lot of the fights and a lot of the people coming up. So while we are on this topic, I did actually want to bring up as well. Obviously, this all kind of came about with Topuria having to relinquish his title, and that's kind of what I wanted to ask you. I know you're a big fan of Topuria. Do you think that it's right that he had to vacate the belt, Carlos, or would you like to have seen him sort of go about it a different way? Like, what's your thoughts on that?
Well, no, I'm happy he vacated the belt because, like I said, it would have just been like you're holding the 145 and everybody's waiting for you to come down. He doesn't necessarily want to come back down. And it makes sense because I think he's like 27 years old, something like that.
Yeah.
And it's like after 26, everybody's saying Conor looked like he was on death's door when he made 145. So it was smart for him to go up to 55. He held it off for as long as he could, won the 45-pound title, and then went up. And that's what Topuria is doing. He's probably, if you look at the guy and you listen to him, it looks like he has a timeline of what he wants to do in his career. And I do think it's pretty cool that he has the belts. He's willing to give it up. It doesn't really mean that much to him to give it up because he's already won it. He's beaten the two top guys in his division. I understand there's definitely more talent that he could be fighting because I'd love to see him versus Lopez. You know what I mean? I'd love to see that fight. And I want to say, is it Gene Silva? Not that Silva's as technical as him, but you can't deny the power when he touches these guys.
Yeah.
But, I would love to see those two. But when it comes down to it, going up to 55, I think is a good idea. Should he get a title shot right away? I don't believe anybody should get the title shot right away. I think you should fight 1 or 2 fights. Let everybody know you're legit for the weight class, and then get the option. But in that same regard, like he's also trying to see if he can be the number one guy at 55. And personally, I would just like to see it. But I'm really not opposed to him doing that because I'd rather him not hold up a weight class. I think that I don't know if UFC like hung on to him longer, but I feel like they let Tony Ferguson fight a lot longer on the cards, even though he was on a big losing streak. I don't know, maybe they felt that they owed him a little something because Conor held up the division while he was in his prime. And he held it up for Khabib, but Khabib wasn't as old as Ferguson at the time. So I don't know, like, I think that's what that does. Guys that are in their prime, they're ready to fight, they need that chance. Can't just have one guy holding the title and the two weight classes, and he's got this fight this weekend. Now he's injured, he can't fight. Now you prolong the title fight at the lower weight class. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm all about vacating the title.
Yeah, and also as well, I think too that they always talk about weight cuts and guys draining themselves in order to make a certain weight, and if guys do go up and that's a healthier weight for them to fight at, I'm a big advocate for that because I think ultimately if guys are really trying to drain themselves in order to fight, I think that that's not something that's necessarily that healthy to begin with. So I do think that also helps to promote fighters being the correct weight class for them. So if guys say, hey, I've got to the pinnacle of my sport and I'm the champion in this division, I proved that I could do it, but my body can't sustain it. I know that I'm not sure necessarily that Topuria couldn't make 145 over and over and over again, but he did say that or Dana said that he didn't feel like he could continue to make the weight, so he did want to move up. So if it is for health reasons too, I'm all for it because I do think sometimes some of the guys do try to become weight bullies and just cut a lot more weight than they need to in order to have success, as opposed to actually just fighting at a much more natural weight. So I think that would also stop some of the people ending up having like medical issues when they do the weight cuts and guys pulling out last minute of fights, on fight night, because nothing sucks more. I mean, than a guy getting injured or a guy, having a bad weight cut, and then you're all looking forward to a particular fight on a pay-per-view, and then one guy drops out, and it's like, all because of a medical issue for a weight cut. So, yeah, I mean, I'm all for it, and even though it is kind of cool as far as having a novelty of, oh, this guy has, 2 belts, or, he's part of the champ club. Unfortunately, the double champ no longer does what the fuck he wants. So, yeah, unfortunately, that's how it goes, and we'll see kind of what they decide to do from here on out. I mean, it doesn't necessarily discredit anybody who's won the belt at one weight division and then they've relinquished it and they've gone on and won another belt in a different weight class either. So, yeah, we'll see how that kind of goes moving forward.
To,
No, go ahead.
wanted to touch back on that, and it's just but when I was fighting and I got to 85, okay, at the weigh in, I pretty much weighed about 230, went down to 85, and then after I fought there maybe twice, then I went up to 205. And the reasons why I were at smaller weight classes is because, like they said, you don't have the wrestling right now. You know what I mean? Like, you want to fight guys that are a little smaller, that are around your weight, that you can maneuver, you can move around easier, and that's okay. But sometimes as a fighter, you need to realize, like, I have the technique, I have the ability. I'm just gonna go up to that weight class because it's healthier for me. Because to stay away from guys that are bigger, based on they're just going to lay on you or hold you or whatever. That's what kept me at 205. And the older I got, I was like, I was good enough to out wrestle some big guys. I should have just made that weight at heavyweight and stayed there. I felt that there was one time I had to make 200 pounds, and I had 5 weeks to do it, and I dropped 61 pounds. I spent all my time losing weight just to make that, you know what I mean? Because that's what I fought at. That's where my head was at. I go, let's do it, 200 pounds. And you realize how unhealthy that stuff is the older you get. And it's like, if you're 26, 27, I'll even throw 28, and you've been fighting at 45, okay, you can make that weight still. Around 28 years old is where you're thinking, if you're Ilya, I don't think I should be doing this any longer. So I think he's making the proper call right now. This is the time to move up a little bit. And I think maybe in a couple more years he might go up one more time. Who knows?
Yeah.
But that's why I think boxing guys tend to have a little bit longer success, because they'll just jump up another 4 pounds, another 3 pounds, another, there's just so many weight classes. And that also gets very aggravating because there's so many different belts, there's so many different organizations. But with MMA, you only have a handful of options to make these weight classes. You got to make it work at this one. And as you can see with Conor, he goes up to 45. He doesn't have that one punch power, but he still has power. So it's like he relied on that at 45. Now, Topuria, I don't know how he's going to be when he's up there. He's probably going to be able to hurt some guys. I don't know if he's going to get clean, out cold knockouts. He never got those at 45, but he did put you out. So I'm like, how's he going to be up at 55? That 10 pounds difference, I think I used to know guys at 55, they will walk around 190, and I don't think Topuria gets that high.
No.
But I'm going to be surprised to see how he is at 55.
Yeah, it should be interesting. And I'm interested to see, I'm not sure about it yet, but word on the grapevine is that he's going to fight Poirier. And I think that'll be an interesting match if that's his first matchup at lightweight before he does take on Islam. Because Islam, again, we were just saying, Islam's huge for 155 as well. He could probably go up to welterweight, to be honest. So, and Dustin's another one who's is a very big lightweight as well. So, it will be interesting to see how, because the 155 division is probably one of the most competitive. It's a Shark Tank. So, being one of the most competitive divisions, it will be interesting to see if the skills and his ability translates over from 145 up to 155. So I think he'll be fine. I don't necessarily think he will do bad, but it will be interesting to see sort of where he fits in that scale of guys, because it is kind of a murderer's row of a division. So I am looking forward to seeing that too. But yeah, we've got a different topic to talk about right here, and this is last week's close decision. But was it the correct decision? That's kind of what we want to know. And if you were on the Gene Matsumoto side, you probably felt a little bit hard done by. I know Carlos and I both did pick Gene Matsumoto last week. We did also say it was a I wasn't necessarily very confident in Gene Matsumoto for the reasons that we were actually just talking about with the weight cut. They had to do a catch weight. I think they said he had about 2 weeks. I read it was less than that for a camp. So Font was able to get it done. And how did you see the fight playing out, Carlos? Did you agree with the decision? Did you have the correct, or what they deemed to be the correct scorecard? How did you see it?
I was happy with the decision. It was a very close fight.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think we had discussed it earlier before we started here. Is round 2, Matsumoto. Round 3, Rob Font. All depends on what the judges thought in round 1, because round 1, like I said, for the majority of the fight, 4 minutes into that round, I'd say Rob Font was probably on top. He landed a lot of strikes that were a little bit more visibly pushing back Matsumoto. Then comes the last, minute of the round, close to the last minute of the round, and Matsumoto gets him down. Doesn't do any damage, but is trying to control him, trying to hold him there. Rob gets back up, and then he gets taken down right again. And when he gets taken down, it's an impactful slam. It's something that got the crowd going. It was, so you don't know if the judges are like, that's what I'll remember about this round. I forgot that couple of straight right hands that he landed that backed him off in the first round, that wobbled him. I'm going to go with the slam. So I assumed at the end of it, they're going to give the decision to Matsumoto. I went to Font. Not a problem. I thought it was close the first round. It all depended on where it went. I was okay with it.
Yeah, I saw it a little bit different. That's what Carlos and I were discussing before we went live. But I did feel as though Matsumoto did win rounds 1 and 2, and for similar reasons that Carlos did explain. I did think that the takedowns were going to be enough, and this has kind of been my gripe about MMA scoring as a whole, is that it seems to me that 1 minute we seem to value takedowns, even if it's not necessarily got the control, but it's got the slam. We kind of factor in the fact that we've seen fights where guys have been given rounds just for holding guys up against the fence, but once a guy, like Matsumoto gets a takedown, a slam, and he did actually, according to the numbers, whether you factor in the numbers too much, but he did actually outland Font in rounds 1 and 2 as well. So from a statistical standpoint, he did win the rounds, and I do have to admit, I wasn't necessarily. It's not an island I'll die on. It's definitely not something that I was like, oh my God, it was an awful decision. But I did have Matsumoto winning that fight. And when I go on to MMAdecisions.com, they have a thing where all of the main media people do go on there and they put their scorecards in, and about 60% of them had Matsumoto winning as well. But I mean, hats off to Font. He was able to, kind of outlast the pace and the pressure, and in the third round he was still going strong. And I did want to kind of ask you as well, as he's a former I say he's still with New England Cartel, do you like the move for him to go to TriStar? Because I mean, he's looked good in his last 2 fights, and his takedown defense, although he was taken down, he was able to get right back to his feet. His cardio looks good, his pressure looks good. What do you think of his move to TriStar?
Well, one of the things that I liked in watching this fight was the fact that he came out and he was ready to pressure. And I hadn't seen that from him in a while. He's always pressuring, but he comes out a little slow, and he's always waiting to set up his jab, and then he'll work his way into like throwing a couple combinations. But this fight, he came out and he pushed the pace, and maybe he pushed it because he's probably thought, short notice, weight cut, I can probably gas him out. I didn't really think that that was going to be the case. I'm sure this is a kid that's in the gym all the time right now. I like Matsumoto. I think he's great, and
Yeah.
I think he's going to be very good. I just think that that's what he thought. I'm going to push the pace and see if this kid's got the gas tank to go, and he had it. He had it to match. It was just Fawn was able to exploit some things in the first round, and I think he landed some heavy shots that he didn't really expect for him to land.
Mm.
I think Gene probably landed more. I think Rob probably landed the more damaging shots in the first. Um, can't remember where the cut came, and I want to say it was the second. And the step and elbow cut him, I think, right in the beginning of the round, and Matsumoto controlled him from there. So I don't know if the cut had anything to do with the judges thinking that he won or lost or whatever, but I don't think that played a big role. I think I was happy with the decision. But then again, like I told you, if they had scored it for the slam, I was okay with that too, because I understand that that can steal your round.
Mm.
You know what I mean? Like it was perfect. He was controlling him the last minute of the round, slams him. Enough said. Like as a as a former judge too, like I could give him the round if the rest of it wasn't entertaining. And unfortunately, the other half of it was more than half of it was action packed. So
Mm.
I would have to say that Rob getting the decision on the scorecard for the first, I was okay with that.
Mm. I'm not sure if this got fight of the night, but I'm pretty. I would go out on a limb, which I haven't looked, but this to me was probably the fight of the night. This was a great scrap, and I said to Carlos again before we got on, I don't think that this hurts Matsumoto's stock as a fighter whatsoever, as a young up and coming guy. I mean, he takes a ranked opponent on a pretty big card. What 2 weeks, less than 2 weeks notice, as a 16-0 guy coming up, you just got to be ready to step in and ready to take your opportunity. And all right, so you lose your O, but at the end of the day, I mean, he's able to prove himself as somebody that belongs. And I don't think it was a bad showing by any means. And I think that he's somebody to watch out for. I mean, he's got great calf kicks. He's explosive. The guy is in great shape. In less than 2 weeks' notice, he didn't necessarily look like he was visibly going to slow down too much. He was tired, but not tired in the respect of gassing, just more of a high-paced fight. The kind of tired that you would expect from somebody that's been in a 3-round fight. And Rob Font is no slouch. I mean, people make fun of the fact that the people he's been losing to and the losing streak, but the guys he's been losing to are the top end of the division. So, like I said, I think good win for Font. Young, tough, upcoming guy, and for the youngster, I mean, at the end of the day, he came into the fight with nothing to lose, and I think he made a good account of himself. So I definitely think he's somebody to watch out for, and overall, I was pretty impressed with this fight. So yeah, big thumbs up. Very happy. And the next topic that we want to talk about is the co-main event, which is Fluffy Hernandez taking on Brandon Allen, and Fluffy was able to get it done. And the question I wanted to ask Carlos was, do you think Fluffy can be a future champion? Because right now he looks pretty unstoppable. I mean, I know that Brandon Allen was able to have success in that one round in the first, was able to get into mount. I think he kind of rushes positions a little bit too much, which is what I was going to talk to you about. Maybe the fight IQ was a little bit off, and Brandon Allen just can't help himself when he gets into a position he feels like he can finish. But what do you think about Fluffy? What do you think as far as him moving forward? And do you think that we'll ever see him get a title shot or with the belt around his waist?
Um, I think that you might be able to. I think he might be able to work his way up to a title shot. One thing that I think about is like, let's say Fluffy's fighting Strickland.
Mm.
Okay, you got to try to out grapple Strickland and get him tired, and he's not going to be able to do that. Is he going to be able to outstrike Strickland? No. So I mean, that's just what I think. So I don't know if he'll ever beat someone like him. Duplessis, if he does fight for a title, who's going on it, who's the champ right now? He's a guy with a gas tank, and he comes and he throws bombs. I don't think he can beat that guy. I think he's going to have a lot of time against Imavov than we'd like to believe, because I don't really see Imavov getting too tired from the grind. I think he's actually going to have a lot of success with takedown defense. Um, I do like Fluffy. I think he's exactly where he needs to be at the top of the weight class. Future champ, probably not.
Mm.
I don't know. That's just me. Maybe it's just the style of fighting. I don't think he can do it. But yeah, I mean, I've been proven wrong before. So I took Matsumoto over Font, and I thought Font had it. So I should have just went with it. But there you go. What do you think about this?
I got to disagree with you a little bit. I agree with the first portion of what you said. I do think he would struggle against DDP, and I do think that he would struggle against Barlow probably because I think his style would fit into Barlow's wheelhouse. Just because I think that Barlow's control is very, very good, and I think that if Barlow wants to keep the fight wherever he wants, he can decide where that fight takes place. I think DDP can hurt him early, and I think that he's not necessarily going to gas out from the wrestling. So I think that DDP would have a success against him. I think Imavov, I think he could break Imavov because I've seen fights with Imavov in 5 rounds where come round 4, he's visibly fatigued. He's visibly tired. So I think he could definitely have success against Imavov. I don't necessarily think that he will be able to have success in rounds 1 and 2. I think maybe Imavov would be able to beat him in the striking, but I think eventually he could wear him out and kind of have success later on in the fight. But he doesn't stand a chance against him, Chimaev. It's basically a wrap there.
No.
Not a shot. Yeah, I disagree with the Imavov part. Maybe the future champ, maybe not, unless his striking improves and we see kind of big leaps and bounds in the striking. I don't necessarily think either. That's where I do agree, but I think he could beat Imavov. Maybe that's the British guy in me, picking on the French guy again. But I do think that he could beat Imavov.
Yeah, I'm not going to try to deny that. I just think that the way Imavov came, he was prepared, and for Izzy, which is a different animal. But I just think I thought he couldn't be like a top 5 guy, and now he's there. So can Fluffy get a title shot? Yeah. Do I think he's going to be a champion? No.
Mm-hmm. And I did just want to throw in there as well that with Brandon Allen, it was kind of funny to watch because every time he was able to get into a position of success, he would try and jump the back, or he would just kind of get a little bit too gung ho, right? He would have an opportunity and he'd want to just capitalize. And I think he had in the back of his mind, I already lost to this guy. I want to prove a point that the first one was a fluke, so I want to finish him. And he would jump into mount, and as you can see from the bottom left picture of your screen, is he's got like basically kind of like one hook in at a weird angle trying to choke him instead of just sliding to mount and beating him up from mount. He kept trying to go for the choke. And I remember in the first round, even I think Bisping said, Brandon Allen had an opportunity just to kind of grab a hold of Fluffy, and he like tried to jump on his back and get the hooks in straight away. And it's like he's kind of obviously fighting his own mental fight IQ, I guess, where he's just making poor decisions. And I would like to see Brandon Allen clean that up because I do think that Brandon Allen is pretty good. He is good on the ground, he is good on the feet, and I do think that there is a lot still to come from him. But I do think in this fight that if he kind of reeled it in a little bit more and was able to make smarter decisions, I actually think this was a fight he could have won. He won the first round, no problem. So I was a little bit disappointed in that respect, and it can just kind of go to show when Carlos and I are doing our picks and our predictions and fight research and stuff like that guys you could do everything right. They could make a poor decision in there and make you look foolish. So I just wanted to highlight that point that Brandon Allen's fight IQ, I think, let him down a little bit in this fight. And last but no means least, I titled this one, What's the Point? Because I wanted to talk a little bit about the main event controversy of last week. And if you didn't see it, Henry Cejudo got poked in the eye in the 3rd round with about 1 minute and 16 seconds left. And I found a very, very funny quote by Demetrius Johnson, which I put on the screen here, which is, if Henry Cejudo's eyeball was a you-know-what, then Song's finger was a you-know-what, Henry would be pregnant right now, because that was a pretty serious eye poke. And he said that he couldn't see, and obviously with all the fans in Seattle were booing, and making, kind of gestures towards the fact that he was milking it a little bit and taking his time. But you could see visibly when he did turn his eye to the side that his eye was pretty red on the inside, a lot of blood in there. And, man can't see, he can't fight, to quote the Karate Kid movies. And disappointing end. Definitely disappointing for somebody like Cejudo, who's 38 years old and doesn't have that much time left in the sport. And I'm sure Song Yadong didn't want to win the fight by eye poke or by technical decision. But one of the things that I wanted to point out, and I'm going to talk a little bit about this topic, is we need to start setting precedent as to when and how often we're going to take points. Because one of the things that I didn't really understand and what I didn't really agree with this was, you've given a win to a guy in Song who doesn't probably want this win because it's by technicality, right? He wants to be able to say he beat the legend of Henry Cejudo. Then you've got Henry Cejudo, who then loses a decision instead of a no contest or a disqualification because I believe it was Jason Herzog decided, hey, we're going to start the fourth round, we're going to go to a technical decision. Whereas if he took a point in the third, it would have been a draw, I believe, or it would have been a draw, or he could have called it a no contest, and they could have run it back another time. So my whole thing was to then say, okay, well, we're going to leave this, we're going to let it go how it is, we're going to take it to the scorecards, and then we're going to let Song Yadong win the decision. He's saying, well, I don't know what the scorecards are, but it was pretty clear at that point it was 2-1 Song. I just don't agree with that whole method. To me, if you score that round, then it's a pretty bad eye poke, and Henry has to take 5 minutes. At what point do we take a point? Now, I've seen fights where, especially researching for this week, where guys have been poked in the eye. I believe it was the Manel Kape fight that I watched against Bruno Silva, where he got poked and kicked in the groin multiple times in one round. And it's like, I can understand maybe once as a warning and then you do it the second time, but they kind of got to get a little bit of a grip on when they're going to take a point and when they're not. And, I think sometimes it's better to be harsh than it is to, kind of give a little bit more lenience, especially with like the grabbing of the fence and the groin shots and things like that, because it can ruin the whole aura around a fight. It can ruin the whole momentum around a fight. And even in the last minute and 16, Henry Cejudo literally said, I couldn't see anything that was going on. He was blurry. And yeah, like I said, I mean, it's for the people in Seattle who paid their money to come and see it, although Henry couldn't continue, it does set the precedent of, we need to get a grip on guys extending their fingers and guys kicking the groin and grabbing the fence. So I'm all for harsher punishments, but I'm also not the person that's been in there. So I'm going to ask the guy that's been in there, what would you like to see, Carlos, happen with fouls and taking points and things like that? Do you agree the way that it went down was the right way, or would you like to see it handled differently?
Well, when you look at the way it was handled, it was actually handled just fine. I do have a hard time with eye pokes that, in the replay you could see are visibly damaging to the fighter and no point is taken because you can't see. It's hard to get the vision back. You got 5 minutes, but just because you got 5 minutes doesn't mean your vision wants to come back in that time. Same thing with the groin strikes. There are some that graze off the side and hit you in the hip, and guys fake it. And, they want the time to rest and all that, but there's no need for those to actually have a point taken. Then there's some that come right up underneath the cup. There's some that come directly at it. You can hear the pop as it hits the cup, and it's like, okay, I got to take a point away from it. One of the reasons why I'm okay with what happened here and no point taken away is the fact that I am not sure if Henry Cejudo was trying to play a game and see that if I got the next round started up, am I going to win this by some type of technical decision? Because if that's the case, then he kind of played himself.
Mm.
At the time where he was asked, he should have said, I can't see, or I can see double, because I've heard two things from Cejudo. Is he couldn't see at all, and then it was like, it's not that I couldn't see, I could see double. So I'm not sure exactly what it was, but you should just say I can't see if that's the case.
Yeah.
Maybe the fans booing made him want continue. I'm not sure, but if you had the vision problem, should have said it there. It probably would have been a no contest. I think that he didn't know the rules very well. And when it went to the fourth round, after he said, yes, I can see, I want to continue, then they went to the scorecards. They figured fair game. I don't believe any fighter should win a fight off of a foul, whether you take a point away or not. Like, so I think it should definitely go to no contest. There's no reason why you should be able to stick your finger that deep in his eye and get the technical decision, you know?
And get him pregnant.
Yeah, and get him pregnant at the same time. um, I just think he was trying to manipulate the rule at that point and thought that he made the best choice, but him and his corner were probably just wrong.
Hmm.
I think he should have went with his first choice, and it was I can't see in the third round when it happened, and it probably would have been a no contest. Uh, Taking points away, it sucks because people love to fake it. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it's like sometimes you see the poke come and it just glances off the eye and the lid is closed. So you know they didn't poke him in the eye. And that guy will fall down like Vladi Divac and flop around. You know what I mean? Like he's really hurt. He'll take the full 5 minutes, maybe that 2.5 minutes, and then come back out fresh and ready to go to war. You never know because you're not the fighter. You know what I mean? So you can't always say like he was milking it. If I was a fighter in that scenario, I'd never been eye poked, but I would be like, yeah, I'm going to take the full five. Why? Because it's my eye. I want to. But the fans want to see the action. I know the fighters don't want to be seen as pussies, so they want to continue to.
Hmm.
One of the things that you don't want to see is the referees have to take a point all the time, which is why I'm assuming they didn't take a point. The other reason is when they zoomed in, first thing that Cejudo asked him is, "Are you going to take a point away?"
Yeah. Yeah.
And a lot of times you say that to an official, he's like, "Don't tell me how to do my job." Then you got the athletic commission, like, well, if he does take a point away, why is he able to tell the ref what to do?
Hmm.
We pay him to be the official. You make that call in the ring. I've seen times where it's a hard foul, like, a definite hard foul, and the referee has been walking back to the corner. You already know the point's being taken. And the fighter's like, "Are you going to take a point?" And the ref's like, "Oh, it's coming. I'm going to take it away from him." And I'm like, I get you agreed with him. Did you have that thought on your own, or were you persuaded to do that?
Yeah.
So that's another reason I think the point wasn't taken away. Herzog was probably like, "Well, what the fuck? Let me do my job," you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so he's not incompetent, and there's different ways to talk to the ref too. Like, like how many times are you gonna let him kick me low and then poke me in the eye? You know what I mean?
Hmm.
How many times are you gonna let him grab the fence? You know what I mean? There's perfectly good ways to talk to the referee and nudge them in your direction without saying, "Hey, you're going to take a point or what?"
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they just have to be a little bit more savvy about it.
You make a good point because I did note that he the second that he got the opportunity to say something to Herzog, he was right in there like, oh man, like, you're gonna take a point. And I did kind of think to myself, like, I understand that adrenaline might be high and like, you've just been poked in the eye, but I know for a fact that if you're in some serious pain or that you've been hit to the groin or whatever the case may be, your first thought shouldn't be let me take a argue whether he should or should not take a point. It should be, damn, I just got hit in the nuts, or damn, I just got poked in the eye. It should never be a case of let me start arguing about trying to get an advantage in the fight, because to me that's like you said, it's like playing a mental warfare game. So I do have to admit, I mean, for a guy that is called the king of cringe, it would not surprise me if it was a mental warfare thing where he's trying to milk it a little bit longer. But it did kind of surprise me that he took the full five and then was like, yeah, I can't see. When he took the full five, I thought he was just using, kind of like what you said, he was using the full five to his best advantage because he's been around the block, he's got experience. So because I always think too that guys should use the full five if they've got it, even if say they're good after, I don't know, 2.5, that they should take a little bit more time than what they do, because I think sometimes guys do rush back in. So I did think that that's what Cejudo was doing. But then when the last minute and 16 happened, and he just kind of skirted around the outside and then went back to his corner and said, I can't see, man. I can't see. I was literally thinking to myself, like, really? I'm surprised, because I didn't expect him to say that. I thought that it was more of a game plan than him actually not being able to see. So that kind of did surprise me. But you never know with Cejudo. I mean, the guy is called the King of Cringe. So Dana White did also say, which I wanted to ask you, was he's not interested in doing that rematch. So what do you think's next for Cejudo? Because I think that's 3 on the bounce now he's lost, and obviously he's not getting any younger. So do you think that he's just not in Dana White's good books? Do you think that he's going to be going back to the belt anytime soon? I personally don't. So what do you think's next for Cejudo?
I don't necessarily know what's next for him. What I do know is that besides beating Dominic Cruz, who was older and had some losses at that point, and Marlon Moraes, who was, I guess, slowly falling off. We just weren't seeing it at the time.
Yeah.
What other successes he had against 135-pound guys that are solid wrestlers and fairly good on the feet? He hasn't had any. So for him, I'm like, I don't necessarily know what you do. He's probably doesn't want to go back to 125. I mean, for 35, he doesn't have. He's smaller. He looks smaller in this fight too. He looks smaller in all the other two.
Yeah.
So, like, what's the purpose of fighting? And I thought he was perfectly okay with not fighting. I thought he was perfectly okay with coaching and being in the gym and helping all the guys come up with game plans. I think that's a great place for him to be.
Yeah.
But he wants to be a contender, so he might end up taking a couple more losses before he's ready to go. What I did want to touch on right before we get off this one is, I don't know about you, but I have no doubt in my mind that he was hurt when he got poked in the eye. I feel like he did have double vision or lost vision or whatever he had.
Yeah.
What I do think is the savviness of him going, what can I get out of this? Because I'm hurt. That would make it worthwhile going the rest of the distance with one eye. He's like, maybe having a point taken away. I'm going to take all the time and see if he's going to take a point off.
Yeah.
Because right now he's on the campaign of telling everyone, hey, you know what? I got poked in the eye. This is the X-ray. This is the MRI. This is the whatever they do of, what my eye looks like and how bad it is. You wouldn't have to go on that campaign if everyone believed you. And I'm like, he shouldn't have to do that. I feel that nobody's been poked in the eye that badly. That was a pretty bad one. And it's obviously takes a while. I've only been thumbed in the eye from boxing gloves and sparring. And that took a solid like 2 minutes to be able to see good. You know what I mean? So I don't know what it's like to have a bare finger with the nail going into your eye, but I feel that he was compromised. I feel that he was just quick on his feet to think about, how can I get the upper hand with this? And I think he failed.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Did you think he was hurt?
I was going to say I share your exact same sentiments. I did think that he was hurt, and I think that he just tried to use his veteran experience to try to game one up as best he could. I think the expression in basketball is he's trying to work the officials. That's what it kind of reminds me of. You always see those coaches, or those particular players who are always, whether it's in the NBA, college basketball, where they're always going up to the referee, and they're not necessarily yelling at the referee, but they're like, hey, man, you see him grab my shorts? Like, hey, you see him, you see him do this? Just to kind of, hey, watch this guy as I cut through the lane. Watch him pull on my shirt, whatever, because it just keeps the official constantly, ticking over as far as, hey, did I call this, or did I miss this, or whatever. So it's kind of just always keeping him engaged. I think that's exactly what Cejudo was doing. And in a scenario where I think that he knew that Song was starting to pick up some momentum, I think that he tried to play the official. And hats off to Herzog at the end of the day. I mean, he didn't fall for it. He stuck with his guns. But we all know how I feel if Chris Tione was refereeing that fight, how that probably would have gone. So, yeah. I'm not really sure what's next for Cejudo. I've never really been a big fan, if I'm being completely honest with you. And he did look very small in there against Song Yadong. And I just want to throw out there as well that I had Song in my last leg of my parlay, so it actually really helped me the fact that it went to a fourth round and went to a technical decision. So instead of it being a no contest, that was brilliant. So that ended up making my parlay win. So that was great. I was happy that that happened instead of a no contest, so it wasn't voided. So yeah, thanks. That was great. Cheers, Hazak. So I'll pay you under the table when we're done. So. And yeah, this week's card, we've got Manel Kape taking on Almabayev, UFC Fight Night in the Apex. And for those of the people who are hardcore fans, you've had this one circled on your calendar. Grab your popcorn. I wish I was serious, but if you're a casual fan too, I mean, like I said, these are some names maybe that you've not necessarily seen. What did you think overall of doing your research on this week's card? And is there any particular fight that you're excited to see? Is there anybody that you're not happy about seeing, Carlos? What are your thoughts before we break it all down?
Well, I am happy. The card itself is not very good. Okay, I just want to throw that one out there. I'm not saying that. They got a lot of weeks. You're going to have some stinkers. This happens to be one of them. I do believe that I do want to see a couple of fights on this that are very interesting to me. Charles Johnson versus Ramazan Temirov.
Mm-hmm.
I like that little guy Temirov. I think he's aggressive. I think he's powerful. I want to see what he could do against somebody like Johnson. Johnson is very skilled. It's going to be exciting. And, he's got that reach advantage. And I'd like to see how Temirov gets by that. Another fight that I would like to see is William Gomis versus Hyder Amil.
Mm.
And the reason being is Amil looks good. And he looks like he's aggressive and he's hard hitting. But Williams likes to keep you at bay. So I'm like, how does Gomis do that? And he comes from a school and he works with talented guys all the time. And I'm like, is this guy hype? Who knows? But dying to see that one too, because I like that kid Hyder, and I'd like to see where he goes with that.
Mm.
Do I think he's going to be a next champion? Not close, but I do think he's got some potential to look good in the weight class. Another one I'd love to see, Esteban Ribovics versus Nasrat Haqparast. I like Haqparast. He's aggressive. He's tough. Something about Ribovics. Can't wait to see him fight. He's always ready to go to war. He's the heat. And we'll get to all these topics soon, but those are the ones I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you definitely circled a few of the ones I'm looking forward to the most for sure. And I think that there's an adequate amount of bathroom breaks in this card. For those of you that don't know what that is, it's the fights that come up that no one really cares about. So you take the opportunity to walk out the room to use it as a bathroom break. But yeah, there's a few decent fights on the card. And one thing I will say as well is when you have people who are either fighting for their jobs or that they are not necessarily on the upper echelon of the UFC, sometimes when I say no names, I don't mean as in that these people are no names within the UFC. They may have been around for a while, but they're no names in terms of getting anywhere near the title anytime soon. So they do have points to prove. So sometimes you end up seeing some finishes. So for the casual fan, what I would say to you is
Wait a minute. What are you saying? Are you saying Cody Brundage is not going to fight for the 185-pound title? I've been waiting for this guy to fight DDP. What are you talking about? The Cuban Missile Crisis is not ready to fight for the 185-pound title. Are you out of your mind?
Calm down. It's I didn't bring up Brundage. Calm down. No, but there is a few fights. Carlos is right. There are a few fights that are pretty decent. There's a few people that with string a couple of wins together, they might be something. But there are a few people who let's be honest, they're not going to get near a title anytime soon. So for the casual fan, what I would say is, if you are somebody that does like to watch fights that could end in finishes, sometimes with the lower level or some of the people who are on losing streaks, they do tend to get finished. So from an entertainment standpoint, it can still be a fun card, which was what I was trying to say. Okay, are you ready to get into these so we can get to your boy Brundage?
Oh man, I can't wait for this one.
Let's get to it. So first up, we have Carolina taking on Montana De La Rosa, and I'm actually going to start this one off. And to me, both of the two women in this fight, I know a good amount about them. I've seen a good amount of both of their fights, and Luana Carolina, she's mostly a striker, and she's somebody who in the past has been struggling because she will always get taken down. She has shown improvements in her ability to defend the takedown, especially in her last fight, and she is on I believe it's a 3-fight win streak at the moment. All to fairly low-level competition, but she has shown improvements, which you need to, especially at the age of 31. You know, she's not necessarily old, of course, but in order to stay in the UFC and keep your job, you do have to show improvements. And Montana De La Rosa, even though her record is 13-9, which is, you know, very surprising that they do keep fighters around that have such almost a 50-50 record, but she is a respectable wrestler, and she's shown improvements in the striking. But ultimately, to me, the thing that I noticed when I watch tape on both of these women is I'm a big believer in momentum. So when I see somebody making improvements from fight to fight, when I see somebody who's got momentum from winning their previous few fights, I do like that. And we see that a lot with the Fighting Nerds. Not that Carolina does fight with the Fighting Nerds, but we see that with the Fighting Nerds, that momentum of winning and kind of being around a good team. I like that. And that's what I see with Carolina, is that she's got momentum and a little bit of confidence going into her fights, that she's improving. What I noticed about De La Rosa is, although she does have respectable wrestling and respectable grappling, she will try to go for takedowns and kind of do a little bit what Brandon Allen does. Like, she will jump the back and kind of force positions where she could keep top control and take sort of position over submission. She'll just jump right in for the submission. And I think in this fight, that's going to be the telltale sign. I think on the feet, I'd give the edge to Carolina. Her aggression, I think she's probably the more likely finisher out of the two. So I just think that Rosa's going to have moments where she's going to be able to go for takedowns, but I think that her fight IQ and her inability to try to just keep the position as opposed to going for a submission is going to be her downfall. So I'm going to pick Carolina to get it done. Probably unanimous decision in this one. I'm going to go with the Brazilian to kick the card off. Who do you have in this one, Carlos?
Well, I'm going to go back to the point that you made, that neither one of them are very good. And Luana has fought low-level talent and has started to get better, which meant I had like almost no interest in seeing this fight, you know. So this will be a bathroom break if I have to get a snack or run to the store.
On the first fight?
Well, maybe I'll just show up late. Who
Yeah,
knows?
yeah.
Yeah.
I was gonna say you got a terrible bladder if you're if you're going to the bathroom already.
I might fall asleep. Nobody knows. They might ruin the rest of the card for me.
Power
The
nap.
problem is like I'm not trying to hate, but I am. And you went with Luana, Carolina. I went with De La Rosa.
Mm.
And the only reason is because of the grappling. Yes, Carolina has shown a little bit of takedown defense. De La Rosa is a little wild when she comes inside. She stands straight up and throws like, straight punches as if she was a 5-year-old in striking class, following the guy with the mitts, but elbows up. But she does get takedowns, and she will jump to position if she has to. And I feel like that's probably what she's going to do to get the decision in this. Do I think she's going to get a finish? No. I do think Carolina's the more aggressive of the two. Um, she moves a little lethargic. Like her strikes don't look like they have much on it. She looks a little clumsy when she's in the ring. And I think Montana can exploit that. But Montana looks a little clumsy at times too. Um, the grappling alone, not that Montana is like the greatest grappler, but I think she's a little better than Carolina. I think that'll be enough to get it done. I'm sure she'll be able to get her down at some point, or Carolina will trip over her own feet and go down to the ground, and she'll be able to at least work a couple submissions, probably no ground and pound whatsoever. And that's how I see this fight going. That's why if anyone's got anything to do and you're going to be a little late, you're not going to miss anything.
You heard it here first, ladies and gentlemen. Carolina slips on a banana peel right into a guillotine.
Right in the middle of the ring.
Yep.
No, I mean, good fights are fun to watch. I don't know I don't even know what to do with that.
Yeah, for
I
sure.
feel like you picked Carolina, so I'm like, all right, I'm gonna toss the pin and I'll take uh I'll take Montana 50-50. Why not?
And next up, we've got Charles Johnson taking on Ramazanbek Tumum- Tumumbarov. And I'm going to pass this one over to you first, Carlos. Who do you have in this one? I think this one's a little bit more of our interest. Which one? Which fighter are you taking
I'm
in this one?
interested. I'm interested in all of them, brother. I'll watch fights. I don't care if they're good or bad. Problem is the bad ones I might fall asleep. The good ones I'm ready for another fight after that.
Mm,
So I don't know how they got. I think that's what this card is. Actually, you said it earlier. Was if depending on who wins, the next person's getting cut.
mm,
The loser of the fight, because there's a lot of that in here tonight
for sure.
in this fight. I'm going with like I said, Tamarov. I like Johnson. I think he moves very well. I think he keeps good distance, and he's lengthy. He's tall. He's rangy. He's fast. He's actually not very reckless at all in any of his pursuits as he's chasing the fighter down. But Tamarov is he has a lot of first round finishes. A lot of the guys are taller than him. None of them as skilled as Johnson, but he finds a way to sneak in there and drop him. And you know, I'm kind of curious to see like, does he have respect for him? Is he going to try to walk through his punches? Is he going to try to slip and come in and does he have the big power to put out guys in the UFC? He finished Vergara, but Vergara's had about the same reach. They were same height. I'm like, does he have the power to put out guys that are bigger in that weight class? And I would like to see that. I do feel that because Charles hasn't been stopped, he's probably got a pretty good beard on him. I feel it'll probably go to a decision. But I like this little guy, Temeroff. He's angry and it's like a little Tasmanian devil.
Mm,
Can't wait to see what he could do.
mm. Yeah, just to go back to what you said at the start of the breakdown as well, when you said about, I'm down to watch all different fights, good or bad. I got a motto, and that is that I'd rather watch a bad fight than a lot of other sports right now. Because with fights, it's like a bad fight is still better than some sports when you're watching them, just because of all the stopping and the checking of the video and all the some of the sports have become a little soft, so. Like I say, a bad fight is better than no fight. So um, I'm actually going to disagree. I'm going to go with Charles Johnson, and I will be honest with you. I was going to go with Tumarov at the start of the week, but the problem I have with this fight is if the Charles Johnson that showed up who fought against what's his name, the Kazakhstan guy. I'm just trying to think of the guy's name. Assume, I believe. I forget the exact name of the guy, but a couple of fights back, he fought that guy, and he was able to drop Johnson twice in the first round. And that's what really worries me is Johnson kind of sometimes he's kind of head in the clouds in the first round, and he starts a little bit slow. If that Charles Johnson shows up, then Timarov will run through him in the first round, probably maybe even 10-8 him. He might knock him down a few times because the power on this guy is unreal. Like Carlos described him as the Tasmanian devil. That is very, very accurate. And I think early he could definitely have a lot of success. But the Charles Johnson that showed up that fought against Joshua Van, I feel like if that Johnson shows up, early in his face, pushing the pressure, clinching up against the fence, using his frame and his size against a smaller guy, I think that Johnson, that fight game plan of pushing a high pace with such a muscle bound athlete, I think that he could, kind of drag him into deep waters and win a decision based on sort of, volume and using his length and reach. And like you said, Johnson's movement is pretty nice. And I think that he could just, use a jab and have Tomarov swing in the air. I think Johnson's game plan needs to be on his P's and Q's the whole entire fight because Timarov is always live for a knockout due to his power and his size. But when I say size, I don't mean height. I mean in build. But the thing to me that I think that really stood out was Tomarov does have cardio, but he does fight at a slow sort of kickboxing pace. Like he throws one shot at a time with full power. Whereas I think Johnson can land multiple shots and land a little bit more volume and kind of push that pace. So yeah, I'm going to go Johnson. I like the height and reach advantage, and I think because of the fact that he's never been knocked out due to that the thickness of the beard, I think he'll be able to get it done here. And Tomarov could also make me look very stupid. He could come out and swing a big overhand and land on Johnson when Johnson's kind of head in the clouds, in the first round. But Johnson's shown that he can weather a storm and come back. So 2 fights in, and me and Carlos are both on the opposite sides of him. But I think this is one of those ones where, Tomarov could also make me look very stupid and make Carlos look very, very smart. So, but yeah, I'm going to go with Johnson in this one. And next up, the fight everybody came to see, J.J. Aldrich taking on Andrea Lee. Throw this one on a pay-per-view and you will be falling asleep. Yes, you are looking at a fight in 2025 where a fighter has a record of 13-10 and is on a 5-fight losing streak and has not been cut from the UFC. However, somebody like Biggie Boy at heavyweight, who is in the top 15, gets cut from the UFC. Make it make sense. But yeah, we've got J.J. Aldrich taking on Andrea Lee. And my breakdown is very simple for this one. There's no way I'm trusting Andrea Lee at 36 years old on a 5-fight losing streak. Even though J.J. Aldrich looks like Fiona from Shrek, I am going to pick J.J. Aldrich. Why? Because Andrea Lee's on a 5-fight losing streak. Do you want me to explain anymore? That's literally it. I could sit here and say, well, Andrea Lee, she's been slowing down, takedown defense, blah, 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 respectable striker. None of it's going to matter. It's not going to matter, okay? I'm picking J.J. Aldrich because I can't trust Andrea Lee on a 5-fight losing streak. That's my breakdown. Carlos, who do you have in this fight?
That was actually why I picked J.J. Aldrich as well. And before that, I was actually, like, I even wrote Sanders, JJ's a little more solid of a fighter than Andrea Lee. And they're actually the same fighter. It's just one is a little bit more consistent than the other much. And then I wrote right here, I go, if the UFC so many fighters that they've released recently, how did these two survive? Now I'm kind of like, if whoever wins this should probably get released. And I'm not saying it because I'm a hater, but it's just facts. Like you mentioned, okay, he had some wins, he had some losses, but the reason why he's gone is you can find a couple of massive guys out there to hop in with a win streak that don't really look very good in the ring, and put them in the UFC and they'll go 3-0, and that's fine. But maybe it's harder to find the women to fill the weight classes sometimes, and that's just my thought process on it. I go, there's no way they could have survived. And I feel like they wanted you to like Andrea Lee, just like they wanted you to like Paige Van Zandt a little bit, and they wanted you, but it's not like they market Andrea Lee, so
Yeah.
that had to go out the window. Like I don't know. Like I said, they're both kind of the same fighter. They're both very inconsistent. So that's why I took Aldrich. And I feel terrible being like, how did these two survive the cut? But they're not the only two I'm thinking about. I'll ask that question again later on, and we'll see if you feel okay with that.
Yeah. And
Answering.
I will
But
say,
that's just how I feel.
I will say as well, like Andrea Lee does have the tougher level of competition. So if she all of a sudden did win this matchup, I wouldn't be surprised. Like, don't go anywhere near this fight with any money. This is not Carlos and I have both picked J.J. Aldrich, so go put money on J.J. Aldrich. By no means am I confident with J.J. Aldrich, and by no means would I expect her to win this fight, because I do think Lee could potentially win. But like I said, I just think that Aldrich, out of the two, I just think that she's maybe got a little bit more upside at this point in her career, given her age. And I think this weekend she could probably defend the swamp. So not in my
So
swamp.
before you leave from that, the one reason why, like as you said, Andrea Lee could possibly win this, I thought that too. And my reason for thinking that wasn't because of the level of competition.
Mm,
It's that a lot of times when she's behind on the scorecard, and I feel that she knows that, she'll go for broke.
mm.
You know what I mean? So I'm like, I never really saw that out of Aldrich, but I'm like, really hard to see someone on a streak like that and say, yeah, they got this fight. But this, I don't feel comfortable in it at all. But I do know that if Andrea Lee's corner tells her from the past experience, like, turn it up, you need to try to get a knock, she will do that. Has she ever got a knockout? No, when they said that, not at all. But she always won that round. So maybe she'll come out a little bit more aggressive. Who knows? I doubt it. But
Well,
Aldrich it is. That's
we
enough of this one. That's enough.
I was gonna say I'm excited for this one after Carlos's breakdown, and if you are excited for this one, hit that like and subscribe button. And next up, we have Danny Silva taking on Lucas Almeida. And I'm going to go first on this one. And to me, this fight, when I watch tape on both guys usually get it done. In terms of the finishing, they both like to strike, they can both grapple. The thing that really stands out to me is I think Danny Silva in his UFC debut in his last fight showed that he can push a pace. He has nice boxing. He can mix in the odd takedown or two as well. He's trained by Cub Swanson, and I think that veteran experience will be able to serve him well in this fight. I think with Lucas Almeida, what I don't really like about him is that although he does throw in combinations and he is dangerous for a finish both on the ground and on the feet, the thing I don't really like about Almeida is that his hands are pretty slow. The hand speed difference between Danny Silva and Lucas Almeida, I think, will be very telling. And I am going to pick Danny Silva in this one. I do feel fairly confident. I think Silva's overall boxing and hand speed will find the mark much more often than Almeida. Or Almeida was able to sit down. Who's it? Timothy Kawamba in their fight multiple times, but it wasn't necessarily that he was able to use his hand speed or to land successful combinations. It was more that Kawamba would kind of dart in and he would throw a counter and land. And I just think with Silva's head movement, his footwork, and supposedly he trains with some Olympic level boxers as well, and supposedly holds his own. How much that's true or not, I don't really know. But I will say that if Silva gets stuck on the feet, he can mix in takedowns, which I like. And I think overall he's going to have a lot of success in the boxing using the hands. So I think Silva gets it done. Not necessarily super confident, but it's one of those ones where it's like I'd be surprised if he lost. I feel like he would have to make a poor decision in there or a bad fight IQ mistake where maybe like he goes for a takedown and doesn't protect his neck or something and gets guillotined if something were to happen. But I've got Silva in this one. I feel fairly confident. How about you, Carlos?
I took Silver as well in this one. I thought he just looked smoother on the feet. I said the same thing coming from Bloodline. He's got some killers in that gym that he's working with. So there's nothing that Almeida is going to have for him that he can't see or he hasn't seen. Almeida, on the other hand, he he's a good fighter too. The only knock is he comes in a little wild sometimes, and if he lands a jab and he feels like he's got a rhythm, he just tends to throw and come after you and step in. And I saw that Silva's punches were a little straighter down the middle and a little tighter, and I was like, he could probably catch Almeida coming in,
Mm.
whether it's a straight right or if Almeida's going for a takedown and knee. Um, Kind of just takes a couple hard steps in. It was hard because you know, Lucas Almeida, I saw his fight on the Contender Series, and he lost the decision there to Zellhuber, but it wasn't like he got beat up. You know what I mean? And Zellhuber, he clearly won it, but it wasn't a groundbreaking like performance. So uh, I think that Lucas has some abilities. I think he's tough. I think he's I think he's game, but I think Silva's gonna take it. I feel way more confident in Silva winning this than Almeida.
Mm, yeah. I noticed when Almeida fought Timothy Kawamba that even though Kawamba got dropped twice in that fight, that he does leave his chin up there in exchanges. So sometimes when his opponent counters him, he will kind of lean back and throw his chin up in the air, and I just feel like Silva will be able to capitalize on that. Um, in that fight against Timothy Kawamba too, Almeida was able to have success in the striking, and I do think that mixing up the wrestling would be a benefit to Silva just to kind of keep Almeida guessing. And I also don't think that Almeida is going to be able to walk Silva down like he was able to do with his last few opponents. So, two fairly confident picks for Silva there. And next up, we have the man with four names, Douglas Silva de Andrade, taking on John Sexy Mexi Castaneda. And I'm going to pass this one over to you first, Carlos. Who do you have in this one?
I thought both guys were, pretty solid, well rounded. I think Silva is the heavier puncher of the two. Um, both are a little inconsistent in the UFC since they've been in. Uh, both have both have some victories against like some solid opponents on their resume. Uh, I ended up taking Castaneda just because, like, he's a little younger. I think he's going to be a little bit hungrier of the two to make a name for himself. Um, had Silva, I mean, yeah, had Silva de Andrade been the same age, I probably would have taken him because you look at a couple of his fights about 7 years ago. He's fast, he's explosive, he hits hard. And his last couple outings, like you could tell, like the pace of his fight kind of slowed down just a tad.
Hmm.
So yeah, I went with Castaneda with this one.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I went with Castaneda too. The thing that I really noticed about De Andrade is that he does, like Carlos said, he does slow down visibly now in fights, and he is starting to look a little bit older. And um, his body not necessarily wouldn't tell you that fact. I mean, the guy is shredded, the guy is in great shape, and physical specimen in there, but it's not a bodybuilding competition. So um, I do think that Castaneda would be best served, sort of. I don't want to say piling on a ton of pressure because De Andrade isn't necessarily known for gassing, but I think maybe mixing in some wrestling early on in the fight would help slow down De Andrade. I think using a lot of low calf kicks as well, just to kind of slow De Andrade down that little bit more. Um, I do think that Castaneda at times has shown that he can get clipped and dropped, but I have seen him, show some sort of, show Mexican spirit and just show the ability to kind of be durable and continue to fight on. And I think that he'll have the volume advantage over De Andrade. And he also stands as a southpaw too. So I think that the big left body kick and the head kick will also be a weapon that he can use as well to sort of keep De Andrade guessing. And I think I'm gonna argue that maybe one of these guys lands a big kick in this fight just based on the stylistic matchup. Andrade likes to throw a lot of spinning kicks as well. Hopefully, it doesn't land on Castaneda. That's the one thing I am kind of worried about is just him getting clipped because De Andrade is a pretty powerful guy. And like Carlos said, both have been very inconsistent. So when a guy who is an older guy, maybe on his way out, he might be looking for a bonus. He might go for a finish. So I am a little bit worried about Castaneda, kind of getting rocked by a powerful guy who's got nothing to lose. But I am going to pick Castaneda in this one. I just think that the volume's going to be enough. He can mix in the takedowns and yeah, I'm going to go with Sexy Mexi to get it done. And next up, we have got Ricardo Ramos taking on Chepe Mariscal. Who do you have in this one?
um, in this fight, I went with Chepe. All right, I thought both worked with two very good camps. Chepe's technique is a little tighter, and he has very good wrestling. Ramos, he has good spinning attacks. shouldn't throw him as much in this fight, I would assume. Uh, because of his spinning attacks, the capoeira background, his strikes are a little looser. Even his footwork tends to be a little bit more relaxed. Yeah, training with alpha male, he's going to have wrestling too. So it's not something, and he's going to be able to get back up. So it's nothing that he hasn't seen before. I think Chepe, I think he just probably wants it a little bit more. He's a little bit more aggressive. I think he's a little bit more in your face. And I'm trying to think of the deciding factor that's making me think of Chepe here, but just those little things, like his movements are a little tighter. He's got good technique in his wrestling. I like him. I think he's going to do it. I think he's going to attack the legs a little bit more. I think it's going to slow down Ramos. I think that's going to be enough to get it done.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, Chepe's got that dog in him. I like Chepe. I'm a big fan of Chepe, and he's somebody who, in the UFC isn't. You put him on a card, and I guess a lot of casual fans might not necessarily know that much about him, but the guy comes to fight, and that's what I do like about him. And I think that's going to be the difference maker in this fight. I mean, there's a whole narrative around Ricardo Ramos that he's a little bit of a quitter, and when things get tough for him, he tries to look for a way out and things like that. So I do think that will play a factor in this fight because Chepe just like I said, he's got that dog in him. He keeps coming, and he tends to beat people to positions. If he wants to wrestle you, he beats you to positions, and he beats you up in the process of beating you to those positions with ground and pound. On the feet, he pressures you. He throws combinations. He throws to the body, to the legs, to the head. Um, like I said, and his cardio is great as well. He can really push a pace. So if he doesn't break you with the shots he's hitting you with, he'll push a pace, and he'll break you with his cardio. And to me, this for Ramos is he's got to be thinking to himself, I need to get him out of there in the first 3 minutes, first 4 minutes of the first round. If Ramos can't do that, then this is going to be a Chepe Mariscal fight all over. I think Chepe is one of the biggest favorites on the card. I agree with it. I think that he'll be able to find a late finish on Ramos because, like I said, I think if Ramos finds himself in the second round with Chepe, I think he's gonna break him, and I think that Ramos is going to end up quitting just based on the pressure that Mariscal puts on him. And I think Chepe will get a late finish. So I'm pretty high on Chepe this week. I think he gets it done. And yeah, I'm going to say second round, ground and pound. And next up, we have Austen Lane taking on Mario Pinto. And Carlos, who do you have in this one? Nope. Carlos, can you hear me?
Himself was
Oh,
a guy that,
Carlos, can you hear me?
yep. Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yep. You just came back. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay.
Sorry. Start that again for me. I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead.
Oh, that's okay. Like I said, I had no faith in Austin Lane. He fought Rebellis of Spain. I didn't think very highly of Despain. Um, so you beat a guy that shouldn't have been in the UFC in the first place. Um, Pinto did look pretty good when I watched him. He looked very composed. He doesn't look like he's trying to look for the finish. It looks like he's trying to fight. If the finish comes, he's going to take it.
Yeah.
Um, like I said, one of the things I thought was great was usually when the heavyweights fall down, the guy on the bottom's never getting up. It's very rare. He was able to get back up against a pretty good wrestler. The guy was built like a gorilla, and he got back up, even though he had a boiler on him. I mean, that belly was big. Uh, Pinto was able to get back up and go to work on him. So I'm going to take Mario Pinto on this one.
Mm. Yeah, I'm gonna jump on board the Pinto train too. I was actually really impressed with Pinto, and I didn't actually see his fight on Contender Series, so I had to go watch it this week for tape study. And I gotta say, Carlos hit the nail on the head, and he said exactly what I was thinking too. Is he doesn't look like he tries to hunt the finish. He looks like he just lets it come to him, and I like the fact that as a big guy, he tucks his chin and he really just throws in combinations and throws within himself. He doesn't try to do anything excessive or try to go crazy in there. he looks very in control of his emotions and shows a lot of sort of veteran qualities for a guy that's only 9-0 making his UFC debut. And we know about Austen Lane, former football player, very chinny. All 5 of his losses have come by him being finished. And um, like Carlos said, I mean, the times that he's been able to beat fighters in the UFC have all ended up being guys who have been cut and not necessarily UFC quality to begin with. And I think Pinto gets it done here. I think that he's going to find the finish. He's going to see an opening. And Austen Lane does tend to leave plenty of openings. And don't get me wrong, these are 2 big guys. Anything can happen. But I was fairly impressed with Pinto. I think he'll get it done on the feet. He'll find the shot that puts Austen Lane out. And I think he's one to, I don't want to say he's one to watch because he's untested yet, but he showed a little something that impressed me this week. And one of the things that you also have to look for up and coming guys too is, especially at heavyweight, is what's their cardio like, and are they a one-trick pony? Is it just a power sort of thing? And we've seen that he can stuff takedowns, like Carlos said, in multiple fights now on the regional scene. And I did see as well that he was able to go, I believe it was 4 rounds in a particular fight on the regional scene. So the guy's got cardio, the guy's got hands, the guy's got composure. So I think he could be a problem at heavyweight because it doesn't take much to kind of rise up the rankings in that division. And I think he'll get the knockout and kind of put people on notice this week as far as the heavyweight's concerned. So, yeah, I like Pinto in this one. I feel pretty confident in him, which is a lot to be said for me because I don't usually like UFC debut guys, but I like this one. And next up, we have England's own Sam Patterson taking on Danny Barlow. And I'm going to pass this one over to you, Carlos. Who do you have in this one?
I was actually waiting for you to take this one, but I'll head it off. The only reason I was waiting for you to take this was I was looking for you to sway me in a direction or not.
There's nothing to sway.
Because well, no, this one was kind of tough because Patterson's got good range, decent boxing. He does mix in his kicks pretty good. If you get him down, he can get back up. He's got decent grappling. Barlow, he brings big power. That's kind of what everybody knows, but he's kind of hunting for the power, like he's hunting for the shot. And, there's nothing wrong with that as long as you get it. But what if you don't? So technically, Patterson seems like he should be who you take in this matchup. And he fights, pretty pretty smart. He has solid defense too. Like I haven't really seen him getting hurt in any of his fights, and I haven't really seen a lot of him in the UFC. So, with that said, I went with Sam Peterson. Patterson, excuse me.
Yeah, I completely disagree. I'm going with Danny Barlow. Yeah, I really can't get there with Sam Patterson. The reason for it is I am kind of surprised in what you said that you feel.
I'm just letting you know. I feel like he hunts for it. I have Danny Barlow right here. That's who I actually went with. The thing is with Patterson, there's something about him that I think his technical ability might play a role in the victory, but I like Danny Barlow. I wanted to go full England, give you the support first before I hated on you. So go ahead.
So just to be clear, you're picking Danny Barlow or you're picking Sam Patterson?
That's who I have on this, and I was like, I'm going to say Sam Patterson because I'm going to show that I'm trying to. I'm trying to look your way because I know I sometimes I always go against that guy from England, and you probably think I'm a hater, but I just I tried to give support. It lasted about 2 seconds, and that's why I went with Barlow.
I'm going with
I'm
Barlow as
sorry.
well. No, it's fine. I appreciate.
I think he's gonna find the shot. Patterson though looks technically sound, but he doesn't look like he's looking for the finish. Let's just say that.
I just want to say I appreciate the support. All right. In the famous words of Kendrick Lamar, they're not like us. He is not one of us. I don't claim him. his chin is way too high up in the air for him to be my boy. So now the other gentleman from Liverpool, you know, that's my boy. All right, but Sam Patterson's sorry,
Don't
my
say
boy.
that. Don't say that.
No, I'm going with
Don't say that
Barlow.
guy is your boy.
Yeah. I'm going with Barlow. I think the athleticism of Barlow is going to be too much. I don't think he's going to necessarily worry about takedowns in this fight. I was impressed with Danny Barlow on the Contender Series. I think he showed me something there that he does have some raw talent. I think that he just needs to be able to put it all together. I think Sam Patterson's overall whole game with him is he's had an advantage with people where he's able to be taller and rangier than them in the other division. And now that he's moved up to welterweight, he doesn't have that range and that height that he's able to use on other people. Both guys here, 6'2", very similar reach. And the thing I noticed about Patterson in his UFC debut, which is why I bet against, I believe it was Asmus. Patterson was like a 3-4-1 favorite over him, and I just did not like the fact that Patterson leaves his chin way up in the air on exchanges, and he got clocked and put out. I think Barlow will be able to do the exact same. I think he'll be able to find him on the feet and touch him up. But I did find it interesting that you said that you thought Patterson was, a little bit more technical, and you were kind of talking about this fight as if it could be a little bit closer because when I looked at the odds this week, the thing that really kind of stood out to me was I was expecting Danny Barlow to be like one of the biggest favorites on the card, and this line was going to take off, and everyone was going to bet Danny Barlow. But it's stayed fairly the same, and even though Barlow is like a 2-1 favorite, I was expecting him to be minus 500. I was expecting him to kind of get up there, based on previous performances from Patterson and the speed and the knockout power of Barlow, but. Overall, it's pretty much stayed where it is. So maybe some people do like the Sam Patterson train this week, and they're backing the English guy more than I am. Maybe I'm missing something, but I'm gonna go with Barlow. I think his speed, his boxing is gonna get it done, and I think he's gonna be one of these guys that's he's gonna show wrinkles to his game, and he's gonna get exposed later on down the line because I don't think he's necessarily all that, but I think that this matchup suits him. I think that he's gonna be able to find the chin of Patterson and get it done. So.
I think before we get off this one, I think that Barlow's, like I said, I think he hunts the finish because I think he knows if he can catch you, he can put you out.
Yeah.
The problem with that is somebody that's technical like Patterson um, should be able to, to get rid of the power. You know what I mean? To get rid of that factor with movement, angles, high guard. The problem with Patterson is like he doesn't have a lot of foot speed. He's long, but he doesn't have a lot of foot speed.
Mm.
And Danny Barlow likes to kind of just jump in sometimes when he's striking because he doesn't really know too much else. And maybe that's changed a little bit, but what I've seen, he kind of rushed in through a right hand, clipped and just lunged in from there. Now the fight, a left hand. Sorry, I think he threw a left hand, and then he caught the other guy and just kind of rushed in. I do see him being able to do that to Patterson, based on his stance. The thing is like the way that Barlow fights because he has potential, but he's raw still.
Yeah.
Patterson should be able to exploit that and diffuse the power. I just don't think he can do that.
Mm.
Because I think John Jones is just going to run over Aspinall. I try to give some power whenever I see the flag of your peeps, but every time I love Aspinall. I hope I told you that I love Aspinall. I think he's an awesome fighter, but do I think Jones is going to beat him? 100%. But back to this, I always feel bad when I see that flag and I don't want to pick the guy in it. At this point, it had nothing to do with Aspinall, or I'm trying to think whoever, Patty Pimblett, that chump. It was basically the fact that I was trying to show you some support.
You heard it here first,
Here at
ladies and
ground,
gentlemen.
here at Ground and Pound, we love all the people in the UK.
You heard it here first,
All the
ladies and
fighters.
gentlemen. Carlos is going to pick Paddy the Baddy Pimler over Michael Chandler in Miami. When we come to that card, we already know who he's picking because he's going to show support. And if he denies it, we can play him back this video of him breaking down this fight and talking about how he gives support to the English guys. Don't worry. We've got him held accountable.
You remember what I said? I go, Paddy Pimblett should lose to Michael Chandler. The problem is Michael Chandler is just going to rush in. Excuse me, he's going to rush in, and Paddy he can hit. And I feel like one of those sweeping rights is going to catch Chandler, and that might be enough for Paddy to finish it. Might even end up choking him. That's the support you're getting from me. I'm just letting you know that.
I like it, lad. I like it.
I'm a Scouser.
I'm a Scouser. We don't get knocked out. Anyway, enough of that nonsense. We have Hyder Amil taking on William Gomis. And I'm going to break this one down very first. I have a very simple take on this one. I actually feel like this is going to be an interesting fight because William Gomez likes to fight on the outside. And in his last fight against Joe Anderson Brito, Conspiracy Corner hasn't come out this podcast, but it's about to. But that to me, if you need to look up in the dictionary about what Conspiracy Corner is, and if you're new to the podcast, it basically just means that I have theories about how certain fighters fighting in certain areas get the rub from the judges. And William Gomez's last fight was the exact epitome of that. When he fought Joe Anderson Brito in France, I do not think that he beat Joe Anderson Brito. I think Brito won that decision quite clearly. I was very, very salty, and I was very disappointed with the judging in that fight, to say the least. And Gomes likes to fight on the outside. He's a very technical striker, fairly tall for the division as well at 6 foot, so a lot to like. He does kind of throw the jab, throw the kicks out there, and fight along on the outside. And it's that savant style, right? It's the French style of kind of not being hit and fighting on the outside, poking at your opponent. And people will say it's very boring, but at the end of the day, you don't get hit and you hit your opponent. So at the end of the day, it does have success, just not what I think against Joe Anderson Brito. But Hyder Amil, very, very aggressive, likes to get the finish, 10-0 confidence, so he's never tasted defeat. And I do think inside the apex, I do think that he can have success at catching Gomes if he can sort of corner him. Hyder Amil has that pressure style where he's going to look to come forward, and because of the small cage, I do think that he is going to have moments where he can sort of find Gomes, but ultimately I am going to pick William Gomes. I think that his savant style fighting on the outside is going to give him success. I think he's going to be able to frustrate Amil and throw counters when Amil's trying to look for the finish or try to look in for power shots. Even though I don't necessarily like William Gomes, I will say that fighting style where you fight on the outside and moving around on the outside, it doesn't look pretty to the judges in occasions, but if you can't slow the guy down and he just constantly jabs you and low kicks you and moves around, as we saw when Zalal fought Calvin Kattar, it proves to be very frustrating, and even though it's not necessarily the most entertaining fight to watch, it does get the job done in terms of winning the fight, and that's kind of how I see this one. I think Amil's going to try to land the power shots while Gomes is going to be on the outside just on his bike playing Roadrunner. So yeah, I'm going to go with Gomes here, and I'm not super confident in this one, but who do you have in this one, Carlos?
I went with Gomes as well. Amil's tough, and he comes from a good gym. Training with high-level guys. I'm assuming he's been doing that since he's been in the gym.
Yeah.
34 years old, hasn't taken a ton of damage in the fight game, so I don't think he's going to be run down or beat up or anything. He is aggressive, and if he knows you're hurt, he'll finish. But that's been on subpar fighters, So the reason why I'm taking Gomes is because of the Joanderson Brito fight. Brito is very explosive and very dynamic, and he was still able to diffuse a lot of that power. And he was able to stay away from getting hit with anything big. And I don't know if I remember that fight correctly off the top of my head, but you said you're gonna have to go back and you went back and watched it and saw that he lost.
Yeah, Brito lost in that fight. William
No, no,
Gomez
no.
won.
You think Joe Anderson won?
Yeah, I think Brito won that fight.
Okay, I'm gonna have to go back and check that out because I was like, I could have sworn that Gomis won that, and I was very surprised, like that he actually won it. But I'm gonna
Yeah.
go back. So before you guys think, Conspiracy Corner is complete and final, I'm gonna go do some research and I'll get back to you because I believe he won that fight, but I'm gonna go back and
Wait. So just to clarify, do you think, from what you remember, are you saying that you thought Gomes won the fight, or because I was gonna say Gomes won the fight officially, but I thought when
right,
I
but
watched it, Brito won. I just want to clarify to make sure we're on the same
right,
page.
I know what you're saying. I thought that he actually won it because I thought he had some ground control on Joe Anderson Brito, and that's why I was like, I'm gonna have to go back and watch that because when I watched it, I was like, oh my god, he's gonna win this. I wasn't really surprised
Okay.
at it. So I'm like, did I remember the right fight or not? So now I'm gonna have to go back to the archives before it gets tucked away in Conspiracy Corner, being in France. So we'll be I'll get back to you on that one. But yes, for this fight, I'm going Gomis.
It's a lonely, dark place in Conspiracy Corner. Trust me, it's where all the
I
degenerates sit.
understand. But I'll tell you, there's only one other person there is Tyone.
Tyone's not welcome over here.
Listen, it's a lonely corner for Tyone.
Can't believe you brought up my arch enemy. And two guys that are going to treat each other like enemies this week is Esteban Ribovics taking on Nasrat Haqparast. I think this one has all the makings for a fight of the night. I am going to break this one down first. And to be honest with you, one of the things that I looked at when I kind of came up to this matchup, I felt like this was a very simple one. I don't know about you, Carlos, but I feel like this is a simple one. And the reason for that is because Nasrat Haqparast in his last fight against Jarrett Gordon, he went to a split decision, and I think arguably he maybe lost that fight. And Gordon's not necessarily known for sort of a pressure style and being able to finish people. And to me, Nasrat Haqparast is always that one person who you always kind of expected a lot of him, and I feel like he's not been able to deliver up until this point in his career. And I always feel like in every single fight that he makes fights a lot closer than they need to be. And to me, that smells danger for somebody like Ribovics because Ribovics is a pressure fighter. He lands everything hard. Everything has pressure. Everything has some intent behind it. And to me, when you've got a guy who you want that little bit more from each round just to kind of solidify rounds, or you want a little bit more consistency from him, a little bit more output. That's worrying for a guy who, he's fighting a guy in Ribovics who he's always going to pressure and he's always going to look to hurt you and always look to do damage. It's going to be able to put staples in rounds for him. So ultimately, I'm going to go with Ribovics here because I just think on the feet, I think he's going to be able to have success and walk Nasrat Haqparast down. I think Nasrat's best path to victory would be mixing in the wrestling, but I don't think that he's going to be able to do that. I think that that's not really his game plan. That's not really his style of fighting, and I think Ribovics is going to be able to get it done, and I've been pretty impressed with him. He's got some dog in him as well. He's one of the ones this week where I think that he's going to have a lot of success. I feel fairly good about him, putting him in parlays. I feel pretty good about Esteban Ribovics this week. I'm going with him. I can't trust Haqparast. He's kind of been one of these wishy-washy fighters in the UFC where he looks decent against like mid-level competition 1 minute and then he kind of falls off a cliff. So I'm going with Ribovics. Who do you have in this one?
Well, Haqparast, he kind of fights to his opponent's level sometimes. The problem is when I think it was Dan Hooker is who he fought. And now it's time for him to fight up to that level. And I think he got beat like couple minutes into the first round.
Mm.
Like Dan Hooker made it look very easy. Um, that's one of my reasons why I went with Ribovics is the fact that I think that he sometimes makes some easy fights look close, and I think that Ribovics. I've been pretty much high on this guy since the Contender Series, and I just I just think he's he's learning to put everything together the way he wants to. Um, Defensively, I'd like to see him a little bit more solid that way. Like he rolls with some shots very well. He brings his hands up, his guard up high when he's ready to come inside, but he does get clipped coming on the way in because you could see it. He's looking to see where he can land first before getting out of the way of danger. And that's the first thing on his mind is where's the opening? Where's the opening? Once he can get rid of that, and he's 28 years old, should be able to in the next 2 years like solidify himself on his feet. You talked about Haqparast wrestling. If it goes to the ground, I'm like Ribovics is going to get back up. He's seen it plenty of times before against good grapplers. He's able to get back up too. Um, yeah, I took Ribovics in this, and I don't necessarily think there's going to be a finish, but I think it's going to be a firefight. So I think it will be a fight of the night.
And if you are still with us all the way up until this glorious co-main event, hit that like, hit the subscribe button, because I feel like if you were up with us and you are about to watch a breakdown of Cody Brundage taking on Julian, the Cuban Missile Crisis Marquez, you are officially a hardcore fan of MMA. If you have never seen these two fight before, I do think this will be a banger, but there's definitely nothing like a Cody Brundage fight. It always has some sort of drama in it. But we have Cody Brundage taking on Julian Marquez, and I'm going to let Carlos break this one down first. I want to see who he has first, but before I give my analysis on this one. But who do you have in this one, Carlos?
Okay, I feel that Cody Brundage should probably win this fight
Okay.
because he has a solid overhand right and he's got the higher level wrestling. And I've seen him able to control guys on the ground sometimes, like when he's ready to. Um, who I picked was Julian Marquez,
Okay.
and the reason is he throws heat. He comes fighting like a gorilla, like he has his eyes closed and he's just throwing punches. Um, Brundage, I feel, is like it all depends. It's like if he's ready to fight smart, throw an overhand a couple times, take it down, I would go Brundage. But I don't know if that's the guy who's going to come in. So if he stands up and fights, because sometimes he stays on his feet too long, I think Julian gets the better of him on the feet. He's just a little bit better on the feet. Both of them are both of them should have been cut by the UFC. I'm sure they just need more guys in the division. I doubt it because the UFC's roster is huge, but um, yeah, I don't necessarily know why these two guys are still there. I mean, maybe they're just there so people can get some easy victories. Unfortunately, they're fighting themselves, and yeah, I took Marquez. Do I feel confident in it? No. I think Brundage should win this one, but I also think Brundage should have gave a better performance against Bo Nickel because he was able to stuff takedowns numerous times, and he should have went after him on the feet because that was what you needed to expose was Bo Nickel's stand up, and he just didn't do it. You know what I mean? So I don't know if he's gonna come after Julian because he thinks that his stand up isn't as good. So then he'll take him down. It's a smart thing to do. Or if he's just gonna stay right in his face and go to war, because that'll be the worst thing he can do. So I'm going with Marquez. He's getting the nod from me. I'm not happy about it. I wish I didn't have to pick Marquez for anything, but I'm taking him for this one.
Let me push my chair in a little bit before I do this one. Just Sit up a little bit straighter. Um, so last week there was no dog of the week, right? Um,
Yeah.
what was his name? The Moldovan guy. What is going to come to?
Oh, Kutalaba.
Ion Kutalaba. So Ion Kutalaba last week, I pick him and I say on the podcast, right? You know, he's going to be a dog that I like, and I think he's got the experience or whatever. He goes out, he gets it done. Costa over, what's his name? He was the underdog. He goes out, he gets it done. I even said as well, even though I picked Basher out, I do think Ricky Simone is live as an underdog. And all three of those people come through. And of course, I could have said to you guys, yeah, go out. You know, that's going to be my dog of the week. And I didn't pick one, and I probably should have, right? So this week I'm going with Cody Brundage. He's going to be my dog of the week, and I'm going to throw it in there. And I'm going to say that there is no way that Julian Marquez should be a favorite over anybody in the UFC. I don't care if it's Cody Brundage. I don't care who it is. He hasn't won a fight in 5 years in the UFC. So there is no way I'm picking Julian Marquez at 34 years old when all he does is literally just call out Miley Cyrus to try to be his girlfriend. That's literally all he does. Um, the guy is dangerous. Don't get me wrong. Like, the guy just fight for a finish, you know. And the one thing I will say in this fight is I am a little bit worried about Marquez's guillotine. If Brundage tries to mix in the takedowns, I do think that, you know, Marquez could try to snatch up a guillotine. Marquez is taking this fight on a little bit of short notice as well, because Brundage was supposed to fight. The name slips out of my head, but he was having a full camp for uh, Logan. It'll come to me. He's like a Division One national champion wrestler. So the whole point I was basically trying to make was this guy Logan, heavy wrestling game plan. So I'd like to think that Brundage is going to be doing a lot of wrestling, a lot of practicing for defending takedowns. So in my mind, I'm going to be thinking, okay, Brundage is going to be working on his takedowns. His cardio is going to be good. He's going to be, you know, in great shape. He's going to be mixing in takedowns, and I think in my mind, I think that that's going to be plenty enough to beat somebody like Marquez. Marquez's gas tank sucks. I think the only way that Marquez is able to find a finish here is if he's able to find some sort of Hail Mary guillotine. I think if Brundage gets out the first round and he's able to mix in the wrestling, I think Marquez will probably gas anyway. I think at this point in Marquez's career, he's pretty much just doing this for a paycheck. I don't think that he takes the sport as seriously as he used to. I think he tries to go for more of a meme approach where he gets on the mic and says some funny shit. I think Brundage, even though isn't necessarily the best fighter, I think that he tries to be the best fighter he can be. And I think the best fighter that Brundage could be is definitely enough to beat somebody like Julian Marquez, who doesn't take the sport as serious. So Brundage, dog of the week, throwing my neck out there, putting the streak on the line. We're going with Brundage this week to get it done. Am I super confident? No, but I like the fact that Brundage was going to fight a guy who is a high-level wrestler, because I think that type of camp, having a full camp, is going to be plenty enough to beat Julian Marquez. So Cody Brundage, dog of the week. Let's get it.
So what I was going to say to you is, you think that Brundage working on wrestling more means he's going to be in better shape? That's all that guy knows is wrestling. So he does that every day. You know what I mean? So he's automatically going to be in better shape. What bothers me is that, you know, I'm not his coach, but you fought a guy um, that doesn't know how to fight, but knows how to wrestle very good. Brundage knows how to wrestle very good, and he didn't exploit the stand up after he stopped a few takedowns. And I was like, I was happy to watch him get choked later, but it bothered me because I'm like, when you're on your feet against the guy who's this national champion wrestler, and Brundage is an All American, a former All American, like they could have went to war on the feet and exposed just how bad Bo Nickel is as a fighter, and he didn't even try. Now Marquez, is he Bo Nickel? No, but he's a big guy, and I'm like, on your way in, you can get tagged. Do I think he's going to get tagged on his way in? No. I think he's actually going to try to stand with Marquez for a little bit. And I think he might get dinged right there. Possibly. Like I said earlier, should he take down Marquez? Yeah. And when I just can't, I can't believe that that's what he's going to do. You know what I mean? So, I'd love to have picked Brundage, but that's the reason why I took Marquez. And the other thing, too, is I didn't know any of these guys, who was the favorite, who was not. Um, Very difficult sometimes to pick the dog of the week, not knowing who's the favorite and who's not sometimes. Because, like, sometimes I can figure it out who should be the favorite, who's not, but I got to get back on the dog of the week stuff because I didn't pick him on the show, but for the parlay, I picked Rob Font, and I was like, I should have had more confidence in going with it, but I still stand by it. Matsumoto's an animal, and he made it a close fight too. So just let me get my bearings, and next week I'll be back on Dog of the Week. I'm coming for you.
I will say as well that even though Brundage didn't look very good in the Bo Nickel fight, he did land a couple of right hands, and I do agree with you that we could probably sit here all day and sit here and talk about all the things that both these guys don't do. I just believe in my mind that with Marquez, I don't think he takes this serious anymore. And when you go and look at who he's beaten guys like Sam Alvey, what's the guy, Coconut Bombs or whatever his name is.
Tolo, yeah.
Yeah. Terrible, terrible wins. They're his wins. And I'm not saying that Brundage has necessarily had better wins, but, he's had a guillotine over Tresean Gore, and he's had, which at the end of the day, I mean, he's still in the UFC and he won his last fight, so he's losing to guys who I expect to lose to, like when he fought Al Hassan. Like I didn't expect him to beat Al Hassan, he's been matched up in the sense of, he's been the guy that they put on cards for the elite level guys to beat, to make a name, to give him a highlight finish. So he's been the highlight finish. So in my mind, I look at it and think, well, okay, that's fair enough that he's been used as a highlight reel tape. Not really fair for him, but in terms of it's fair in terms of the skill gap is clearly there. That's what they're doing it for. But Marquez doesn't even have scheduled fights. He just pops up and shows up and says, hey, I'm just going to fight some guy. Whereas Cody's at least having camps, full camps, training for particular guys who are high level guys and he's doing that every single time. So I can trust that a lot more than I can with Marquez, that I don't even know what the guy's doing. I never ever see, I never see him training. I never see him doing a whole lot of things. So yeah, I like Brundage this week, and it's not my most confident dog of the week, but I think he can get it done. I like the fact he's got a full camp. So
I just like the way you explained that better. That's great. He is the highlight finish for those guys. I'm like, yeah, that's exactly what he is. So
yep. Put all your money on the guy that gets finished by everybody.
Yeah.
And last up, we have some names on this one. We got some names on the main event. We have Manel Kape taking on Asu Almabayev. And I'm going to pass this one over to you, Carlos. Who do you have in the main event?
Okay. Excuse me. Right now, I think that Kape has looked phenomenal in his last fight. The speed, he hit hard for the weight class. He stopped a lot of takedowns, but was it Bruno Silva?
Hmm.
Not the best wrestling, say that. But he did stuff a lot of those takedowns. So far, I think Mokaev was the only one able to hold him down, keep him down. Almabayev, good wrestling, good striking, a little wild on the feet. Um, in short, I feel that Kape's takedown defense, I'm just going to go on the last fight, looked a lot better. Even though the guy's not a wrestler, it looked a lot better. Kape is very quick. In his last fight, it looked like he was in the Matrix. He could see things coming. He was getting out of the way. He was countering. He was beating him. He was beating him up pretty good. And I liked Manel Kape since the Ryzen days. So I'm going to take him in this fight because I feel like he's got the ability to finish Almabayev. I don't think he's going to, maybe not get a finish, but I feel like he's got the ability to get the victory over Almabayev. Um, I think he's going to punish him on the feet. I think he's actually going to be able to stuff some of these takedowns. I think he might be able to even get back up. And yeah, that's how I got it.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm going with Manel Kape. I was a bit unsure about this one initially at the start of the week, but the thing that really sort of made me decide to pick Kape was that last performance, like you said, against Bruno Silva. Even though Asu does have that wrestling, the higher level wrestling that Kape's not necessarily faced yet, I do notice that even in the Mikhaev fight that um, Kape can be a little bit gun shy when going against somebody that can wrestle. But I think that the speed of Kape gives him that advantage where he can make up for being taken down with being able to be that much quicker than his opponent, that he's able to be much harder to get a hold of. So if an opponent is able to sort of get in on his hips, that he can, circle out or use his speed to his advantage to be tougher to take down. Um, and Yeah, ultimately, I'm going to go with Kape just because I feel that on the feet, it's going to be night and day. I think he's going to be much faster. I think he's going to be able to get the hands going. And I think he shouldn't throw any blind kicks. He should really just keep the boxing going. I think Asu also isn't necessarily trained for a 5-round fight. So I don't see how, in the course of 3 rounds out of the 5, he's going to be able to get Kape down for multiple rounds and have success holding him down. He might do it for a round, but I don't think he'll be able to do it for enough rounds to bank him the victory. I think Kape overall is going to be able to do enough damage on the feet to be able to slow down Asu and just make the takedowns that little bit harder. Going at the low calf kick, for example, and throwing the uppercut or showing him the uppercut just to kind of make him think about the uppercut when he's going in for takedowns. And Asu actually has underrated striking. I think that's one thing that I noticed this week is I kind of was under the impression that he wasn't only a wrestler, and I didn't really see too much of his striking. But when I watched tape, I was actually surprised when he fought Nicolau. His striking's not bad. So I do think that Kape needs to take him seriously on the feet and just kind of mind his P's and Q's. But if Kape fights him on the outside and he throws volume, his speed should be enough to get it done. And I feel fairly confident with Kape, but he can be a little gun shy at times and a little bit inconsistent. So he's not super confident, not super high up on my list this week to bet on for sure. But I'm going with Kape, and I think he gets it done. And if you've liked the content, if you've been with us throughout the whole breakdown, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. And like Carlos said, if you guys like the content too, he's going to be back on the Dog of the Week. Like I said, we break down these cards every single week, so I hope you enjoy the content. Before we leave, Carlos, do you have anything that you want to say to the viewers?
No, I'm just not happy about your bragging about Dog of the Week. I haven't been picking them because I don't really look at the at who's the favorite, who's not. So now I'm gonna have to do that and take that into consideration a little bit more because I can't have you just winning it every week.
Well, we'll
You
see.
actually picked 3 last week, right? Is that what you said?
I picked no. I said last week I didn't actually pick a Dog of the
No,
Week
no,
at
you didn't.
all.
Oh, you didn't. Okay,
No.
all right.
I picked Kutalaba last week, and I picked Costa, and they were both dogs, but I didn't make them the Dog of the Week. But I also said in the Javid Basharat breakdown that I feel like Ricky Simone is live, and he ended up winning as well. But I didn't actually go out on a limb and pick a dog because I was concerned that I could be wrong. I didn't want to break the streak, So we are on
Yeah.
a 2 in a row streak. I think it's like 4-2 overall. So out of the cards we've done so far. So hopefully this week Cody Brundage makes it 3 in a row. So for all the degenerate bettors out there, hopefully we go 3-0 this week. But yeah, like I said, like and subscribe, and we will see you guys next week.